Today we're covering Chapter 2 on our beginner series for Sketchup Free. So today we're going to be going over all the different shapes and related tools. Going to be a fairly short video. We're going to go over everything fairly quickly. And then once again, I'll give you a week or so to practice up and really learn the tools before we go into Chapter 3. So let's get started. Welcome back. This is Fuzzee Tutorials, and I'm Fuzzee D. All right. So this is what we're starting with here today. This is basically the shapes and stuff that I'm going to show you how to make with our basic shape tools and a couple related things. So I'm going to have some time codes for chapters down in the description. So we're going to be covering our shapes tool for rectangle, rotated rectangle, the circle and polygon tool, 3D text. We're going to be covering straight lines, freehand lines, and arcs. So the standard arc, the 2-point arc, the 3-point outside arc, and the 3-point inside arc. So that's for making like pie-shaped wedges, that kind of thing, like this one over here. And we're also going to be covering the offset tool and the trim overlap, which is the offset tool with a modifier. And we'll be covering the erase tool and a little bit of push-pull stuff. We're not going to be doing a lot with push-pull, but it's necessary to kind of show you some of the other basic stuff. Then there's a few different things you can do with the eraser tool for not just erasing, softening and stuff with different modifier keys. So we're going to cover that today. Now, as you'll notice, my lighting and stuff is looking a little more back to normal. I still have exploded desk parts stacked around the place, but we're getting closer to getting set up here. I have to coordinate with the maintenance team for the building because they need to come in and fix some stuff once we pull the current desk out of the way. So stay tuned for that, and when I get the new desk in, we'll do a quick little tour. Not sure if I'll just integrate it into one of these or if it'll be a separate video, so stay tuned for that. This is the first time I'm using these particular settings with my little mouse highlighter thing here, so let me know what you think. If there's changes I should be making, let me know. So I'm going to be doing a little experimenting with this type of stuff over the next few videos, trying different things out. So make sure you drop a comment below and let me know some things I could improve with it, or even just general comments or questions about the material we covered today. The first thing we're going to look at here is the rectangle tool. So there's a couple different ways we can access this. I can hit R on the keyboard. That's my shortcut. Or you can go up here, and then the rectangle one, it's the first one in here. So we'll just show you what that does. Now I'm just clicking and then letting go the mouse button. So I'm not actually dragging this out. We need to stay away from doing that in SketchUp Free. Now once we've got it kind of in the general area that we want it for size, you'll see that little line that pops up. I've showed you this in one of my previous videos. This is indicating we've got a golden section. So this is using the golden ratio, and it'll also tell you when you've hit an actual square. See how it pops up the little tooltip there. So now if we want a particular size, once again, we can type that in without clicking anything. Don't try and click over here in the little box. It's live, you can just start typing. So let's say we want this 36 inches square. So I'll go 36, 36, and hit enter. The thing to remember with these, like any other tool, we can specify a particular plane that we want to draw it on. So we can force that with the arrow keys. So if we hit the right arrow key, that puts us on our red plane. So if we just click once there, so we're on drawing that on the red plane. And then if we go left, that's going to put it on the green plane. And it's the plane it's drawing it on, not necessarily the direction it's going. And then the up arrow will draw it flat on the ground, but you're drawing on the blue plane. So that's how it chooses the planes that it shows you with color. Now there is a function with the down arrow key, but we're not ready to be messing with that yet. So let's actually, we can draw this kind of up in the air here. And you notice it's saying constrained on plane. So that means that we're forcing it to draw on the plane that we want. Once again, we could draw a box or a rectangle 36 inches by 36 inches. Just typing that in, hit enter. Okay. So now we've got the rotated rectangle tool. Okay, so with the rotated rectangle tool, we click and release on our starting point. We pick the length of our line, and this is basically our baseline. We're going to click that, and now we're going to swing around a little bit so we can see better what's going on here. So now I can actually go up and down. Okay, so now we're creating it on an angle. So once you get it to the angle you want, and we can just click our mouse, and there we go. So there's our rotated rectangle. Okay, now we're going to go for our circle tool. So let's just get rid of a couple things here. So we're just going to hit the space bar to grab our selector tool, select all this, get rid of it. All right, so let's grab our circle tool. So we can either hit C on the keyboard, or you can go over here and pick the circle. Now you've got some modifiers you can use with this, but let's just start with a basic circle. So draw this out, and you notice when I get to being perfectly on a plane, the mark that goes back to the center, which is our radius mark, it changes color to indicate the plane. And you generally want to try and do this because a lot of times when you're doing later work trying to align things, it can be more difficult if the base part of the circle isn't perfectly aligned on one of these axes. So we'll just pick that and we'll hit our mouse. I want to show you something else here when we go to draw the circle again. Okay, so I've got the circle tool selected again. Now you'll notice down in the lower right hand corner here that it's got sides for our little box. So you'll notice if we zoom in, this circle actually isn't perfectly round. It's made up of segments, and each one of these segments is a side. Now programmatically, when it's calculating other things, it's still being treated as a circle, you know, behind the scenes. But for drawing and managing all of these different objects, it needs to do this to just make it run faster, especially when you're doing this in a web browser. So it's for efficiency's sake. And there's a few other reasons as well, but that's probably beyond the scope of this tutorial. So what we can do is we can actually go in and change these number of segments. So normally it defaults to 24 segments, which makes a fairly decent circle when viewed from a distance. But if you want to increase that, we can. So we can just type in the number of sides we want. So I'm going to go 48 and hit enter. So now when I draw a circle, you'll notice it looks a lot smoother. So if we zoom in a bit and look at them side by side, so you can see here for every one of these segments, we've got 2 segments here. So just be cautious when you're using this though, because when you start pumping up a lot of segments in your circles, then it's going to start slowing down as you get, 50 objects, 100 objects, 5,000 objects on a screen when you're working on a complex project. So it's just something to be aware of. If it's a small little project, you can get away with it, but the bigger you go, the more careful you have to be. Okay, now as I mentioned in my previous tutorial, where I was just kind of introducing you to stuff, we've got the Polygon tool. So really it's basically the same, but we can have a little more range on our sides, and programmatically it's viewed differently. The way it calculates and does stuff behind the scenes is a little different, but from our perspective of using it, it's exactly the same as the circle tool with these couple little things. So you can actually, okay, so with this tool we can once again type in the sides. So let's say I wanted a triangle. So instead of having to draw that out manually with the line tool, I can just tell it 3 sides, and now we can come in and draw a triangle. Now the same rules apply for the radius. So you'll want to align it to your axis, and you can always align other stuff to it a lot easier, and then you can grab them as a group and change their angle if that's something you need to do. Now there are other ways to deal with off-axis items, but that's going to be for a future tutorial. Once again, we can change our number of sides. So if say we wanted to do a hexagon, then we would put in 6. Oh, sorry, we're still locked into the previous triangle. That's the other thing. You can actually change the radius after it's been drawn. So if I wanted to make that bigger, I could change that to 12 inches. Or if I wanted to make it 2 feet, I can type in 2 and then the little foot symbol, an apostrophe, basically. And then we've got 2 feet, so 24 inches. So now if I just hit my selector tool, back to this tool. Now if I wanted to do a hexagon, I can type in 6 sides, and now we can do a hexagon. We've got some modifier keys that are basically the same between the polygon tool and the circle tool. So if I use the control key, and then if I hit the plus or minus, I can add segments or I can take them away. So that's kind of neat, and can be handy if you don't want to have to keep typing stuff in. So that's pretty cool. All right, the other thing that I want to cover real quick is let's grab our selector tool again. All right, so we've got our selector tool. So I can come in here either to one of the circles or one of these, and if I click on the outside, that's going to select just the line, and I can go up here to this menu on the side. This is our entity info, and you can see it's got the radius here and segments here. So I can actually come in here and I could change this after the fact, and it'll automatically resize the face with it. And I can also change the number of segments. So if I wanted to make this 7-sided, I can just type that in and immediately updates it. And you can also hide it just by hitting this little eye thing here. But we want that back. Okay, and then if we hit this little arrow up here on the right, and that will retract for us. Let's do a little work with the arc tool. So we're just going to hit A for arc. Now, normally you won't be drawing these out by themselves, but I'm just going to kind of show you the basics of the tool first, and then we'll cover how we're going to use it. So we click once, we move, we click again, and then we can set how much of our arc we want. It can be a full circle like that, but most of the times you're going to use it just to make an arc like so. And then we've got our, all right, so we're going to grab this this different arc tool. Now this one works a little different, you'll notice. So after you make your second point to establish your radius, then we just set up how much of a circle we want. All right, so we could do that. Or sorry, arc, not circle. And then we've got this one here, which is our 3-point outside arc. Same thing, start with your center, And you'll see how this is, it's making it quite a bit differently than the other one. And once we set it, now under the right circumstances, it will actually fill in these two lines. But in this instance, we can just use our line tool. So we'll just hit L on the keyboard. So now we can grab that and bring it into our center point. Another one back to here. Now, you have to understand, I'm not a real guru with this program. I'm actually fairly new to it myself. I've only been using it for about 6 weeks or so. So there's a lot of stuff I don't know yet. And some stuff that's available in the regular SketchUp, you just can't do in the free web-based version. There's going to be a lot of stuff that we don't cover because we're concentrating on SketchUp Free. There is a ton of tutorials out there for the regular versions of SketchUp, but SketchUp Free not so much. And that's where I'm really trying to fill the gap. And eventually we're going to get into some pretty advanced stuff that you can do with this. And now here's our one for creating our little pie shapes. So this is our 3-point inside arc. So once again, now we're establishing that our center and radius again. And once you get it to where you want it, click on it, and there you got your, not exactly a pie shape, but now the way that we're normally going to use this stuff is in conjunction with other shapes. Okay, so we're going to start with a rectangle. Yeah, now we're at a square. Okay, now we're going to get a little more overhead on this, and we're going to zoom in. So now we're going to grab our arc tool. So now you could actually come in here and use your tape measure and draw some guidelines. Now I did cover that on another tutorial, but we don't necessarily need that just to show you how this is working. I'm going to get into the different things you can do with the tape measure tool, deep dive on the next chapter, I think. So we're going to start here, and we'll come over here, and you'll see how it's creating our arc here. Now you notice that at some point it turns pink. Now that means that we've got a perfect tangent to the edge. So it's going to provide us the smoothest transition. So now we can just single click if we like. And, oh, sorry. So if you do the single click, then you have to come back and kind of reestablish it. So we come back a little bit until it turns pink. And then we click and release. Now, the better way to use this tool, if you're using it to actually round over corners like this, is you can do a double click. So we'll click there, get pink. Now, if we just double click, it makes the cut for us. And now if we go to the other corners and just double click near the corner, it'll repeat that last operation. So double click, and we'll double click. And we can even go here and double click. And because there's already one there, it didn't work. Well, that's fine. We can just hit escape. And this is where we would use an eraser tool. So we come in here, I hit E for the eraser tool. And then if you look real close, there's a little tiny circle. So you get that little tiny circle over the line, and then you can erase. Or you can just click and drag it over the line. That's another way to do it. So you can use that same basic technique for the other arc tools on there. So you can use that same arc tool and you can draw the corners differently. So if I came in here and then came and established our corner point, and then we can come in this way and we could cut like a notch in like so. And if we had an actual corner, we could basically do the same thing and be cutting into it instead of smoothing it out. And we could do the same thing here. Click, click. So now that we've got a few interesting little shapes here, let's add one more extra little shape in here, so I'm just going to grab and draw a rectangle on here, like so. Now we're going to talk about the offset tool. I can hit the letter F for offset, or I can go over here. This is actually the push-pull tool, and the third option down here is our offset. But I find when you're doing a lot of this stuff, you really do want to use your keyboard shortcuts as much as possible. Now we just are going to grab an edge. You don't have to be right on it. It's going to pick any start point on this edge, where that little red dot is. So we're just going to click, and then I'm going to start pulling in. And you'll notice a little bit of weirdness going on as it's pulling in this offset line. You see how some of this stuff is doing some little bit of weirdness there. See, at some point, one of these little points got on a different plane. So that was accidental. I've never actually seen this happen before. But you'll notice as I'm coming across here, you're seeing some of this stuff is intersecting. And when it intersects, it eliminates anything after that intersection. But you can modify that behavior. So if I hit the Alt key, now they'll just continue to cross, and you get all kinds of weirdness and funkiness. Just not necessarily a bad thing. Now there definitely are some circumstances where you would want to use something like this modification. Let's pick this one here so we're not having that weird upper thing. So then I can just bring in that offset, and now if I grab my normal selector tool, now you'll see we've got individually selectable faces and shapes. So the offset tool is very useful, and you're going to use it a lot in this program. Let's do a little bit of push-pull. So I'm not going to get deep into it because that's going to be for a future chapter, or actually a couple chapters probably. But I need to create a little cylinder so that I can show you how this softening stuff works with the eraser tool. Then we're going to push-pull. Make that a cylinder. Now let's see, how many sides have we got on this? So we're 48 segments. All right, cool. So let's draw another circle here. Let's grab our circle tool. This time we're going to set it to, let's say, 24 sides. Okay, and we'll push-pull this one. Same height as that. Now, right now, I've got this stuff already set in the environment to be smoothed, but a lot of times they won't be smooth for you. So let's pop open our display tool here. Okay, so I had to actually go in and force the one object individually. Now, when you've got items where you're actually seeing these lines show up, and most of the time that's going to be the case on default projects when you're starting from scratch, and sometimes you might want it to look more like this really smooth one. Now, that granted, this has got twice the number of sides, so it's naturally going to look smoother, but you can achieve similar looking results without having to have that number of sides. So if we go back in here and we grab our erase tool, now instead of coming in and erasing these lines, we can use a modifier key. So if you look at the bottom, you'll see whenever you have a tool selected, it shows you the modifier keys you can use for it. Okay. So now, if we hit the control key, we can toggle softening or smoothing. So we'll hit that control key. Now you'll see the little symbol change there. So we've got like a little red squiggly line. So that's telling us that we're in our smoothing mode. So we just click on that little line. So it's not actually erasing it. It's just changing how it's being handled. And you notice that as we do this, it's starting to look smooth just like the other one. And then you can hit your Alt key and you can unsmooth. So if you want stuff to actually show those angles, right? So we can hold, or we can hit the Alt key and then we can bring those lines back, because hitting the Alt key shows the hidden geometry. That way you can find those smooth lines and bring them back if you want to. Now there's also ways to do this for the whole item. So we'll hit our space bar, triple click on this to select everything, and then we'll come down here and now we can do it for the whole object. So I can turn this on for the smoothed edges. So it's a bit smoother and it's got some shading, but we're still seeing the lines. Okay, so if we go back in here, we'll triple click again. And now we can go in here and we can soften our edges. So now if we click out here, now you'll see the lines are gone, but it's still showing the distinct segments on our shading. So we're going to select this all again. And now we're going to make sure both of these are selected. And now we get that nice smooth look like the other one. The eraser tool will just do normal erasing. So if we hit E again, we can come in here and we can erase an individual line or a face. Or you can just draw across something and delete it, just like that. So in the next chapter, we're going to take some of our other tools and do a little bit more of a deep dive. So what I want you to do in the meantime is I want you to practice with this stuff. Do all the as fanciest stuff as you can figure out how to do, but just using these tools. You really need to kind of ingrain it into your muscle memory and get used to doing this. And the other, as you're doing this, you're also going to be getting practice of moving around the interface. And that's going to be something you really need to learn for the next level of using this program. It's a simple program to use, it really is, but you have to learn it step by step in the right order and kind of get your base knowledge really ingrained, and then the rest comes really easy. It's all just putting in the hours. So if you enjoy our tutorials, please make sure to subscribe. If you really like this one, hit that like button and make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss future tutorials. Make sure to check out links in the description below, and there's also going to be all our chapters and stuff in there. So thanks for hanging out with us today. We're sure happy you were here, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.